Well, I was very pleased a couple of weeks ago to have my Mavic Pro Drone arrive in the mail. But in the last couple of weeks, I've only had a chance to tweak it and take it out of the case and look at it and try and figure out the software component. But this is the first chance that I've had to fly it. I was driving down to Regina for the weekend, and about 8 p.m. on Friday night, I was in line with Condi. And Condi Nature Center is a place just north of Regina, about 5 or 6 kilometers north of the city. And I haven't been here since I was a schoolboy, and so I thought, oh, I'm just going to pop in. It's about 8 p.m. It's evening light. I'd probably get some good footage if I popped into Condi. So I popped into the nature center and parked and hopped out and started flying right away. The Mavic took me about 2 minutes to get ready to fly, and it was in the air very quickly. So it's an incredible little machine, and it flies incredibly. It was a very windy night on Friday, and the Mavic is impacted by the wind for sure, but the software in the machine compensates really well for it. And so looking at this video, you can't tell that it was a really windy night. And the gimbal on the camera, or the gimbal on the drone, is looks like it just kind of dangles out in front of the drone, and it's amazing to me that it's so stable with such a high wind. This was my first drone, and I have no experience flying drones or flying remote control aircraft or anything like that. And so tonight was about figuring out the inputs required with the controller. It is incredibly easy to fly when you tell it to take off. I did all this in manual mode, but you can do a lot of things automatically too. You can tell it to auto take off and return to home. I didn't use any of these features tonight. I'm in beginner mode tonight, and so I set the maximum height to 20 meters. Didn't vary too much from that elevation. Just because I didn't want to lose the drone, and I didn't want to crash it or anything like that. So I was very conservative this night. You'll notice as the video goes along, I get a little more adventurous and start moving out a little farther afield. But I think the farthest I got away from the truck was maybe 300 or 400 meters. One of the things I've decided is that my camera work needs to be a lot smoother. The drone has to point in the direction of the camera. So if you want to shift the camera work to the right, you have to turn the drone right. The drone turns really fast, and so you'll notice some of my turns are probably a little too fast for any really decent cinematography. I'm a little better here as I decided to fly down the road. The other thing too is that while the drone is extraordinarily easy to fly and the camera is pretty straightforward, it's not easy to fly and concentrate on the inputs required and the camera angle all at once. And so this would be what will take the practice. So the camera is on a gimbal, and it will point directly down, and I think it points about 10 degrees above level as well. And so there's quite a range, probably 100 degrees of range on the gimbal. and again, you noticed before when I was playing with the gimbal, it moves very quickly too. There's a little roller control or roller button on the controller, and that's how you lift and lower the gimbal. You'll see coming up too that there's another roller on the other side of the controller that changes the exposure of the camera, and you'll see it becoming washed out here. And this was not intentional. This was not me trying to do this. It was I was actually trying to rotate the gimbal, and I was using the wrong side of the controller. So I didn't like this, obviously, so I pulled it back to zero compensation. Because of the high wind, you're supposed to get up to 27 minutes on the battery, but this night I only got about 19 minutes on that charge, because it was so windy. So wind will reduce the amount of time you have on the battery, and yeah, I imagine air density and temperature and all of those things have factors in how long, but that's why you really do need more than one battery. They're very expensive batteries, but I can see why you'd want to have multiples, and even more than two, perhaps. If tonight I only used the one battery and flew it for about 19 minutes and decided that I was done, but you know, if you only have one battery or even just two batteries. 38 minutes of flying, depending on what you do, is not going to be all that satisfactory. It takes about 2 hours to recharge the battery. Here it is. I'm coming in for a landing now, and I didn't use the return to home feature. I think it was at this point that the battery started chirping at me that was telling me to land. And because of the wind, you'll see me yawing quite a bit, jinking back and forth, trying to get it to land on the tonneau cover of my truck. Yeah, there's my gimbal going down so that I can see the alignment. This looks like I'm way too close to the cab, and so you'll see me adjusting a little bit, and you'll see that with the reflection or the shadow in the tonneau cover, that if I hovered, the wind would take me off. And so here, once I got it lined up, I dropped it fairly quickly. But that's the first flight of my Mavic. It was a lot of fun.